You guys know I love podcasting and listening to podcasts, and I'm guessing if you're listening to this that you love podcasts too. Have you ever considered podcasting yourself? It is a great way to reach your audience, grow your know, like and trust factor, and not need to show your face unless you want to. If it is something you've thought about but you don't know where to start, then head over to becomeapodcaster.uk/BAP quiz, BAP quiz, to access a 2-minute quiz that will help you work out what type of podcast might suit you. That's becomeapodcaster.uk/BAP quiz. You're listening to the Mindset and Action podcast, bringing you the map to grow and streamline your business in 2023. I'm your host, Donna Eade, your go-to gal for all things podcasting, planning and productivity. And I'll be bringing you all that plus mindset goodness from experts with knowledge to share. Let's make 2023 the year of success in your business. The key is to set realistic customer expectations and then not just meet them, but to exceed them, preferably in unexpected and helpful ways. Sir Richard Branson. I am so excited to introduce to you today Talia Zamora. She helps ambitious business owners, especially those from neurodivergent families, to become the go-to service provider in their fields and achieve the income they desire without working 24/7. Let's jump into today's show. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I am so glad to have you here today, and even more glad to introduce you to our guest, Talia Zamora. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here, Donna.
It has been a long time coming. I have wanted you on the show for so long. We actually network together outside of podcasting, and Talia has done some meetings of mine and I really enjoy listening to her. So I'm really glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So before we jump into our topic, I would love it if you would tell the audience a little bit about your background, who you are, what you do, and how you came to be doing what you do.
So that's a great question. So I am a business coach predominantly, but I will tell you a bit more as I explain. So I started out working for myself in 2018, and it was kind of accidentally on purpose. It wasn't something that I'd been longing to do for years and thought, I want to start my own business. It just kind of came about. So my one of the reasons was because I needed a bit more flexibility in life. And flexibility is a huge part of it for me. So obviously, working in business, you need to work a lot of time, 9 to 5, and obviously pre-pandemic, most people were working at a desk, and there wasn't a huge amount of flexibility. Obviously, now things have changed quite a bit. So I wanted a bit more flexibility because I had kids, and I was doing the school run. And I wanted to be there for assemblies. I wanted to be there, for sports days and things, and doctor's appointments. I've got kids that are neurodivergent, and they have extra needs. So that flexibility is a big part of it. So I was coming to the end of a contract and kind of thought I need to take a bit of a break, think about what I want to do, how I want to do it, and taking into account my family. So I just had a little bit of a break, did some training and some more training, and then started doing a little bit of online support and social media for other businesses. And then got myself a coach, and it kind of all went from there. And she inspired me to be a coach because I came from business improvement. So my background was all about working with teams and helping them to streamline what they did and improve how they use processes and systems. It kind of made sense to help people do that on an individual basis. And having left the workplace because I was a mum that needed flexibility, I was really passionate about helping women in business to succeed, have the cake and eat it, and be there for your children, be there for your family, and earn a good wage, and a lot of the time also, having worked in a university, have that success factor as well, personal success factor. So I've seen a lot of women go through university, get amazing degrees, do some fantastic things with their career, and then start a family, and their options are really limited. Because of location, because of the need to be at home, not being able to maybe jet set all the time or do long hours. So you're kind of limited. So sometimes find some really hugely qualified people working on reception desks, and it just doesn't make sense. So yeah, for me to help women to run their own businesses and do it on their own terms is amazing. So through my journey as working for myself, I have changed a number of things as I've gone and improved a lot of things for myself, but then also I have also started coaching in the neurodivergent world because of having kids that are neurodivergent. I've noticed that there are lots of people that need that support out there and they don't necessarily get it. So I do some family coaching and a lot of business coaching. And the business women tend to also be mothers of kids that have needs, or they have their own individual differences themselves. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. Yeah.
Love that. And I think it's really something that you kind of like on the cutting edge of that almost, because you have children that are neurodivergent themselves, you know what it's like. And so to sort of step out there, being a coach and actually get on that train and say, hang on, I'm going to help people that are in the same situation as me. I think there's not a lot of coaches out there that can empathize and understand the needs that some parents in business are dealing with. So I think it's fantastic that you sort of took that and went, do you know what, actually that's going to be part of my focus in my business. So I really, really think that's a great thing for you to do and to help in your area of expertise there.
Thank you.
So today we're going to be talking about audience and clients, and these are two very different things. And what I think is funny is how, and I'm sort of guilty of this myself a lot of the time, is how people understand that they need to build an audience to grow their businesses. So they're out there, they're on Instagram, they're getting followers, they're engaging, they're on LinkedIn, like creating connections, they're doing all this fantastic stuff. And then when it comes to actually selling to their audience, they clam up and suddenly they've disappeared and they're not talking about it. And making that transfer from audience to client seems to be quite difficult for a lot of people. And I know that you will obviously have good insight into this. So I wondered if you could tell us what sort of things you see are the biggest fears that come up for people around converting their audience into actual paying clients, which at the end of the day is why we're putting ourselves out there all the time, is because we want to work with people.
Yeah, that's a great question. Fear, there's so many different fears we have as running our own business. Not being successful is a big part of that. And can I do this? Am I of value? Can I charge that? There's so many fears that get in the way. But I think when it comes to audience and growing your audience and converting those audience members into clients, one of the fears that gets in the way is, how am I going to handle those clients? Suddenly, I'm going to do this big launch. I'm going to follow this process that I'm planning. I'm going to put this course together, or I'm going to start this new strategy. Then obviously you then in your head thinking, oh, there's going to be hundreds of them. And obviously we want hundreds of them. But all of a sudden you're thinking, but I haven't got enough hours in the day. How am I going to cope with this? How am I going to deal with all the phone calls, all the, discovery calls? And suddenly you've got an influx in your mind of all these clients that you can't handle and you can't serve. So then that stops you from...
That's me.
Yeah, but that's all of us. So then it stops us from doing it, to even beginning to do it, It gets in the way. I think, oh no, I'll just do it a little bit smaller than that, or maybe I shouldn't put as many posts out, or maybe I shouldn't shout so loud. So you clam up a bit, or you retract a bit from what your original plan was that you were all excited about doing. So yeah, it's very human and normal to do that, but we need to be aware of that and think to yourself, let's be realistic about this. And if you are in such a wonderful situation that you've got all these people knocking at the door, you can provide a whole new service of one-to-many. You will find a way to help those people because we're passionate about what we do, right? We want to run podcasts. So if, for instance, you had lots of them knocking at the door, you could maybe do something like Clubhouse does and have lots of people in one go. So, you find ways. And I'd encourage people not to hold back, just let it happen.
I think that is so true. And I've literally just gone through a launch. When this episode comes out, I think my program will have actually finished because, guys, you know me, I am a preacher, a teacher, and I follow what I preach. So I like to batch. And so when I do my podcast batches, I tend to have my guests all done in 1 month, and they're then distributed over the next 3 months. So I think our episode is coming out towards the end of my batch. And so my program should have finished, but right now I'm just off the cusp of having closed doors and all the way through. And before I was just like, yeah, what if I get too many people that I can't handle? Because you want to test things, you want to do things on a smaller scale. And the way I did it was I went for it, but I told everybody that I had a cap. I was only going to let so many people in this first round because I wanted to make sure that everything was working and everything was functioning. So I gave myself a limit and I made it an application process so that people wouldn't be able to just buy it. I would be asking people to join. And then I was just like, if I get more people than I need, then I can adjust it. If it's just a couple more, then I'll let them in. If it's a lot more, then I will go back to them and say, hey, I'm going to run it again, straight afterwards or whatever, if you're up for that. And so I'd kind of eased myself into thinking, I'm in control of it. Just because the loads of people want to buy doesn't mean I have to sell it to them. Obviously, we want lots of people to buy. And so I feel like I push myself over that hurdle of thinking, gosh, what if everybody and their dog wants in on this?
Of course,
by saying that I was going to cap it at a certain number for this first time round, because I think until you've run something as well, if it's the first time you've run something, you don't know how it's going to go. And you might be pre-selling, you might not have actually created the product, and that sort of pressure of having hundreds of people wanting you to create something can be a little bit overwhelming. So I totally get it. I've totally been there, and I'm sure many people have. And I hate to use the cliche, but people say, you don't play small in business, you play big, go big or go home, and that kind of thing. And when it comes to talking to your audience, I think you really do have to go big. And I've spoke a lot on this podcast about how people don't see every post you put out. Even in this last launch that I did, and I had a Facebook ad going, I had posts going up on the regular, I was in my stories all the time. I had all of this information out there. I was emailing my list. I still had people come back to me and go, oh, I didn't know it was open.
Yeah, of course. Not everybody sees. Not everybody reads the emails. It takes people a long time for it to sink in and think, I've got to get around to doing that. So, absolutely. It's good that you're aware of that, because it's kind of a little bit of a double-edged sword. In one sense, you don't need thousands of people in your audience, on your mailing list. You need the right people instead of multiples. But in other ways, in terms of conversion, you actually do need a lot, because you need to be aware that even though you might have 100 people on your list, you might actually only have one from that 100 or two from that 100 that buy in. And actually, that's having 2 or 3% is actually average. So it's something we need to understand when we're running a business, that it is actually necessary to be seen time and time again before people will press buy or will contact you or email you. Or, that can be quite exhausting, especially if you're not aware that that's what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you need to be more strategic about how you connect with people and develop relationships instead of it being audience. Think of it as building relationships. So you're kind of skipping the audience bit and going straight into getting to know people and understanding their value, understanding their needs, understanding whether they're the likelihood of them wanting to kind of buy from you and benefit from you.
I think that's really important. And email open rates are crazy. Like I get an average of between 35 and 40% open rates on my emails, which is really good, isn't it? Yeah. I'm like really impressed with that. But then you go to the click-through rate, and the click-through rate is just like, oh, what is the point?
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking sometimes because it is a big drop. I think the average open rate is 1 to 2%, I think, off the top of my head. And mine hits somewhere between sort of 1.5, sort of half and 1%, which just makes me feel like what I don't understand why people are on my list if they're not, because my email is literally telling people that this podcast has dropped. That's the main point of the email. And I'm just like, I don't understand why you're not clicking on it. But then I think about it and I got the downloads on the podcast. They don't need to click on that link. They just need to go to their podcast app and I'll be in their podcast app if they're subscribed. So they don't always have to click the link to actually go and listen to the podcast.
So it's not always the best. It's not always the best measure, is it? Not
the best measure, no. So it's, again, one of those things, just wanted to sort of pull on that point that you said, that you need the right people on your list, because I've looked at those conversions and those conversion rates, and I've done lots of calculations, and lots of different people have given me, like, you know, if you're going to be running an ad and you get this many people in, this is the kind of conversion rate from ad to lead to opt-in, from opt-in to, and each time the percentage is like getting smaller and smaller because the commitment is bigger from the client. And I worked out, for one, like if I wanted to get in the right number of people for my program, I needed like 500,000 people to see my ad. And I was just like, I'm not Amy Porterfield. I have not got $100,000 to drop on an ad. That's insane.
It is insane.
But when you are working with the right people and you're talking to the right people and you've got the right people in your audience, those average conversion rates
is massively different.
Don't apply.
No, it's different.
True. It's like you can get people in at a much higher percentage conversion. So for me, in this last launch that I did, I had a conversion rate that was about 5%, I think, on the people that showed up to my webinar to the people that bought. And that was really good. And I'm just like, actually, if I can scale that, that would be great. If I could get 100 people in to my webinar, then the conversion, and keep the conversion rate the same, because the people who are in here are people that actually want what I'm selling, then that'll be a good turnaround for me. So that number is much easier for me to sort of think about than 500,000. So when you're looking at these average conversion rates, guys, don't sort of think, oh my God, what's even the point of doing this? Because a lot of the time the people in there are, especially when it comes from ads, they're possibly people that have never heard of you before. So this is their first interaction. And we all know that it takes 7 or 8 connections before somebody's actually going to buy from you. They're going to be people that might not be ready to buy, but they're interested in it. So they're interested in finding out a bit more. I had a couple of people on my webinar that were just like, it's something that I'm thinking about down the line, but I'm not ready now. I just wanted to sort of understand a little bit more. So you've got people that are in different places, but if they are coming into your world, then that means that down the line, they possibly might buy from you. But I want to come back to the audience to client, because I kind of went into adverts there, which is something entirely different. I think when you're working with your audience, you've got a much better chance of converting them into a client because they've been in your world and they know you a little bit better. But there is this fear that, you know, for me, we spoke about one fear. Another fear I have is annoying people, you know, putting it out there so much that the people that are regular viewers of me and do sort of like all my posts and connect with me a lot, that I'm going to show up in their feed because they interact with me a lot, which means they're going to see all of it and they're going to get bored and they're going to get upset and annoyed and just like, ugh, you know, and stop looking at them, stop interacting with them so that I die off out of their feed. So there are all sorts of different fears and situations and scenarios we come up with in our head to sort of stunt us in our progression when it comes to getting our audience to buy from us. But you have a strategy for this.
I do,
and
indeed.
I would love us to talk about
just
it.
on that,
go
on that point about that fear, there are a lot of people that actually want to see your posts, and they want to, and they won't get annoyed. They want to see them, and they'll miss them if they're not there. Because I'm sure you felt that on social media before, thinking, oh, I haven't seen Sharon's post for days. Why not? You start to get used to seeing people pop up. So even there will be people out there that you annoy, but actually, if they leave you and they stop following you, it's fine. They were never for you in the first place. So that you're leaving space for somebody else to come in. So in many ways, we've got to get over that fear of annoying people and just accept that, yeah, not everybody's going to love me. And that's okay, because there's enough people that will.
And on that point, exactly that happened. Somebody I follow on LinkedIn disappeared off LinkedIn. I don't even know if they're back now, to be honest with you. But I just noticed that they hadn't been in my feed for a while. That was just a fleeting notice point. And then about a week or so later, I thought, hang on a minute. I still haven't seen. I went to their page to see if, because maybe I hadn't interacted on a couple, they just dropped out of my feed and they hadn't posted in 3 weeks. And I got worried, like actually started putting out feelers to see if anybody had heard from them, because it had been 3 weeks. And it turns out that they're actually okay. And somebody had seen that they'd commented on somebody else's post. They just hadn't posted themselves. But yeah, I was like actually worried about them, because I was just like, they're so on it. They were regular posting, and I always see them when I go on LinkedIn. And then all of a sudden it was, and there was no, like, the last post wasn't I'm taking a break or I'm off on holiday or anything. Like, it was just one of the regular posts, and then nothing. And that gets scary. So there are people that actually do really like seeing you.
It's true.
And get worried about you when you don't show up.
There you go. Well, it's funny, isn't it? You kind of get used to them being in your world. So yeah, absolutely. So then when you're building an audience and they're appreciating you, you might not actually necessarily know about it. So that person might not have necessarily known that you were part of their world. It's just you do it in hope that there are people out there that are following you and appreciating what you're putting out there. So, and that I'm thinking of in terms of social media. So we've all got different methods. So in short, I would tell you a little bit about the strategy that I work with my clients to help them, because there are so many different things that we can do in terms of marketing and so many different platforms. And all I'm hearing on the news today is about Thread, the new platform. I
literally just downloaded it before we jumped on. I was like, this may well be a mistake, given that I've got 2 podcast recordings to do today.
Well, there you go. See, there's so many opportunities out there, especially with social media. But I'm one of these people that I very much follow the jack of all trades, master of none.
But you've got to finish that. You've got to finish it. Is often better than a master of one.
Oh, yes. Okay. I totally agree with you there, because I was going to say you need to pick a few and stick to them.
I never knew the ending of it, and I heard it, and
I've not heard that before.
Because I've always said, I'm a jack of all trades, and everybody knows that the next line is master of none, and I'm just like, and that makes me feel a bit. And then I was like, it's often better than a master of one. Are you kidding me? I love this saying. This is me.
I've not heard that before. That's great. I like it. So, but I do feel that when you run your own business and you start watching everybody else, you think, oh well, I've got to go networking. I've got to do some ads online, and I've got to to join this social platform, this social platform, this social platform. I've got to put some adverts out in the newspaper. You start doing all these things. I've got to get some freebies to hand out to everybody. And so there's multitude of marketing opportunities. And you start doing all of them, or a hell of a lot of them, and it's exhausting. And then you're not necessarily putting the right energy into the messages. You're just doing them really quickly to get them out there. So one thing that I really strongly suggest is pick the ones that you feel happy about, that you enjoy doing. Because if you're somebody that looks at, follow people online and they think, oh, they're doing lives every day, they're great at that, and obviously they're getting loads of interaction and engagement, I should be doing that. And you start pushing yourself to do that, but actually your energy is not right. Your facial expressions, the words that you're using are not coming out properly. You're just not comfortable. And people will read that and they won't necessarily follow you because they think, oh, this is a bit awkward. I don't want to do that. I don't want to follow this lady. So you need to pick the things that basically fit for you, right? So my suggestion is to start with 3. So you start with 3 things that you feel really happy with and comfortable with. So one of mine is networking, because I run a group like yourself, and I enjoy doing that. And meeting people in person to me is a huge thing, to be able to do that and get to know people and build relationships. So another thing for me is I send out a weekly tips and tricks for running your business, helping people out, different methods. So that's my other thing. And then I'd say either the social media posts is on par with me doing presentations or podcasts or things like this, chatting to people, because I like to do that more than I do written word. So I find that a bit nicer to kind of get to know people. So
I like that. I like that idea of just choosing 3. And I think what you said about people feeling overwhelmed at everything, and just you rattling off that list, I was just like, oh my God, yeah. And it's that dilution, when you're trying to do everything, you can't do anything really well. And so I love this idea by cutting it down to sort of 3 things. And like you, mine's networking, mine's my podcast, and then my social media. And I am only really active on LinkedIn and Instagram. I made a decision back in March that those were the 2 areas that I was going to focus on and put my efforts into. My Instagram automatically shares to my Facebook. So I do have a presence there, and I do go in there because. So
your social media is almost 3 in one go. Because you've got 3 platforms.
3 platforms, yeah.
So you've almost got 5 going on, which is fine. There's no limit. It's just to be conscious of not doing too many.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now there's this ThreadUp platform, which I'm
exactly. If that's going to be your new passion.
But my conscious decision was I was just going to focus on 2 social media platforms, Instagram and LinkedIn. Facebook is there, but I'm not active with it, so I only sort of respond if there's a notification, because obviously I go on there for personal reasons. There's a couple of business groups that I'm part of that I really love to sort of dive into, so I do go over for that, but I'm not there promoting my business. Obviously if I do an ad, it shows up on there, so that's kind of, Facebook is not my favorite place. So Instagram and LinkedIn, my podcast and networking are kind of my go-tos. And I just don't think that there's a need to like do everything. What you said about somebody doing a video because they saw somebody else doing it and getting really good results, it's like you've got to find what suits you best and what you can excel at, what you can shine in, because that's going to do you much better than doing something that you're uncomfortable with or that doesn't come as naturally. That'll do you a disservice. So I love that.
There is a caveat though.
Go on.
Because if you're not doing anything because you feel uncomfortable, or you're not doing very much because of the discomfort, you kind of need to step out of your comfort zone a little bit. So for me, networking was kind of very, very new to me at the beginning. Obviously, I hadn't ever done it before, hadn't run my own business before, hadn't really had a reason to do networking. So that was really outside my comfort zone. But I was very fortunate that I found Debbie Gilbert, and at the time it was Mums Unlimited, now Business Women Unlimited. Then because it was just so relaxed and comfortable, and I didn't have to commit long term. I could just go along as a one-off and just try it. So it meant that I could dip my toe in. So if you are feeling uncomfortable, just find a way to do a little bit of what you're tempted to do and think, actually, I might like that. Let's try and give it a go. So if you do think, for example, that actually going live or doing videos might suit you, but you're a bit scared, just do a 1 minute, and try it.
Do stories because they disappear. So, do it on stories.
Yes, exactly,
you can practice and disappear within 24 hours. So if they were absolutely terrible, you've not got any history of it.
Love that, because one of the things when I was doing it at the beginning, there wasn't really stories, and I felt very naked. I know it sounds really strange, but I would feel naked putting out a video. I'd think, I'd keep on watching, thinking, has anybody noticed? Has anybody watched? Has anybody liked? Has anybody commented? And it would kind of really make me very nervous, and I'd want to go and just take it down and delete it. So it took a while for that to go, and for me to feel comfortable and think, sod it, it's out there, it's done. And it did for a while become a thing that I was quite happy to do, just chat to the world live. So it does depend on the type of person you are and if you feel comfortable with it. But choose things that you're aligned with, really.
One thing about getting out of your comfort zone is what you were just saying there is like, there's a difference between something that you really can't, like physical fears around things like showing up on camera. It might make you like really anxious and like shaky and like up in here and like feeling sick and all of that. Like if it's making you feel like that, please don't do it. Just don't do it. But if you're just like, oh no, nobody wants to see my face. What if nobody watched? Like Talia was like, is anybody watching? Is anybody actually going to like it? If that's the fear, then do it anyway. And very much like you, we were speaking before we got on here that, I'm very highly introverted. So networking to me is like anxiety inducing. But I do like to talk to people, and I'm very much great. I like a one-on-one situation. So a cup of tea with a friend, I will talk for hours, but in big group situations, I can feel quite overwhelmed, but I know it's great for my business. I know that once I'm there, I'll be able to be there and be present. I just know to plan my days accordingly. So if I'm going out, so for instance, at the time of recording this, me and Talia are meeting up on Monday with the other leaders of the Business Women Unlimited meetings. And we're going to have lunch together. That's going to be a very extroverted time for me. So I have got Tuesday where I have no contact with other people planned in my diary. So I'm just going to be in the office doing admin stuff, and I'm not going to have calls with anybody. And that's how I manage it. And so there's a difference between something that has got such fear around it versus something that just makes you uncomfortable. And that fear doesn't mean it's always going to be there, because the more you start to do things like, if you do a video, for example, where you're not speaking, it's just like B-roll and you just put text over it, or you do some video of something that isn't you and you do a voiceover. These are little ways of getting into doing, and I know we're just talking about video in that respect, but these things just help you to move outside of your comfort zone in a slow, more manageable way, so that one day maybe you are feeling comfortable to do video. But video is not the be all and end all.
Exactly.
That's why I talk about podcasting a lot, because you don't have to be on video. We are right now, but you don't have to be on video to have a podcast. And so I like the way you sort of reframed that, feeling uncomfortable. If it's just discomfort, then maybe push yourself a little bit. If you're literally a puddle mess on the floor at the thought of doing something, then maybe start with something a little bit easier.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I was in industry, if anybody ever asked me to run a workshop or do a presentation, I would have run away. I really would have run away. I could never have seen myself doing that. I was a big fear, public speaking in particular. And since working for myself, and I know what I'm talking about, I'm really passionate about helping women in business. then actually I'm not scared of it at all. I'm quite happy to stand up and in front of a room of people. I mean, I would be nervous, don't get me wrong, but I'm still happy about the subject because I know that it's all that I know it, and that I'm not gonna freeze up and I'll just speak till people tell me to stop. So, and the same with presentations. If you'd asked me 6 years ago, can you see yourself doing that, I would have been like, yeah, really, never. So yeah, now I'm at a stage where I'm thinking, oh, maybe I'll do a TEDx at one point, and I never would have done something like that before. So yeah, you do change, you do come out of your comfort zone, you do become more comfortable in what you're doing and how you present yourself and how you show up. And so when you're picking a few different strategies for yourself or methods, I do it when I work with my clients. I often talk about doing it as a chart and picking those methods that you're maybe feel a bit uncomfortable with, or you feel aligned with, or that all things that you're already doing. And maybe this is a good exercise to actually cut back on a few things. I think actually let's just focus on a handful of strategies that I'm going to work on and make and turn my followers, my audience, into clients, because you can't necessarily make a strategy out of all of them. So when I'm talking about strategy, I mean putting a journey together. So for instance, getting a new follower within, let's say, a Facebook group, or your newsletter that comes out every week, or on your podcast. So you've got a new follower, and the aim is to share and get more followers. But also in that process, once they've joined you, you've then got to think about what you're doing with those followers. What you're providing, what's going to keep them there, what's going to enable them to get to know you. So there's this term, know, like, and trust. So that's kind of like the next stepping stone. So you've got to think about building that relationship. So with a newsletter, in many ways, it's a simple process. You're going to be sending them a newsletter every single week, every single month, for instance, and you enable them to get to know you, but also you're giving them value in that same breath. And then potentially you're also then giving them an opportunity to connect with you further, so giving them a link of some sort to listen to your podcast, to read a blog, to maybe come and see you in person, to watch a video. There's a trail. That journey continues. And then perhaps if they're listening to a podcast, they're then led to multiple other podcasts that you've done previously, so the journey continues even further. And you spoke earlier about a workshop, so the journey could also then be that they are then invited to join a workshop and to either come to a free workshop or a very low offer workshop, or just get on that stepping stone of something that doesn't have to be too big, because quite often if we have little things like free blogs, free podcasts, people start following you and start buying into you, even though they're not spending any money. They're getting to know you, that trust is building, that relationship is building without you even necessarily knowing about it. You invite them to email you, maybe interact with you. But if you're seeing them in person and networking, this is so much easier because you can do a lot of that all in a 10-minute chat. That know, like, and trust can be built really, really quickly. Whereas social media, you're doing it over email, it takes longer. So you're just thinking about keeping them on that journey with you, building that relationship until they potentially buy that workshop. You then meet them in person or on Zoom, for instance. You build that relationship even further and it solidifies. So to then a client, they're then potentially somebody that will buy from you further. So then you've got to think about nurturing it to the point they continue to buy from you. They continue to come to your workshops. They continue to want to listen to your podcasts. They stay in your world, and they're beyond a client. They're somebody that then becomes almost a friend. You get to know them. It's a friend on a different level. But yeah, you build that relationship, and then they become your fanfare as well, because they'll talk about you, they'll shout about you, they'll refer people to you. And the value of having those relationships continue is huge on that front, because in many ways, once you've built the foundations of your business and got this core of people that love you and trust you and like you, they're the ones that actually do your marketing for you. So that's the purpose of building that journey and building those relationships and keeping them going. So for my clients, for instance, even though they may have worked with me 3 years ago, I will always send them a Christmas message and a small Christmas gift, because I want them to remember me. I want them to get value still. But I also hope and want them to refer me to other people, because they know the benefit that they've received and will want it for others too. So
I love that.
Yeah.
A nice little surprise and delight. I love a bit of surprise and delight for customers.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a really it can be inexpensive way to get a new client, to look after your old clients. And doing that little surprise and delight, it doesn't have to be anything big. But seriously, how often do we get nice things through the post that we didn't buy ourselves?
Yes, exactly.
Like we don't get letters through the post, and nobody writes a handwritten letter anymore. You only get bills, but most bills now are paperless, so you don't even get those. So you're basically getting the flyers for the local takeaway and the charity bags, and then things that you have bought that usually, like Amazon household items. Like literally in the middle of this podcast, guys, I had to stop, go to my door, open to the postman to give me my dishwasher tablets.
Love it.
So, we don't get anything. So when somebody actually takes the time to post something out to you that is a nice little gift that you weren't expecting, that is, it holds so much more weight than the gift itself holds, because it's somebody who has, one, taken the time and thought of you, two, taken the time to package something up, three, taken the time to go to the post office, because now everything needs to be weighed and stamped because nothing is the price of a letter anymore, and actually sent something off to you. And that is a lot more effort than sending an email saying thanks for being a customer. So people understand the effort that takes. So even if it's just a new notebook and pen for the new year, like Merry Christmas, hope you have a fantastic Christmas, here's a notepad and pen to start your 2024 off well. Somebody is going to be like chuffed to bits with that.
Yes, absolutely.
And I love the idea of surprise and delight. When I did my podcast relaunch, I had a relaunch pod squad, and they shared it for me and helped me hype it up. And two of the girls in there were really went above and beyond what I had expected. And I sent them a thank you, and they were both surprised and delighted by it. And it was just so nice to do it. And it makes you feel good doing it as well, especially when they sort of send you a thank you.
Absolutely.
It's just
yay,
I made somebody happy, which is just all we want to do in life, really, isn't it? We just want to be happy. So I love that. I love that little journey that you took us on. If people want to find out more about this strategy and find out how they can work with you and get into your world, I know you've got a free training on your website. Tell us a little bit about that and how people can get hold of it and what it's all about.
So the free training on my website is basically a more detail about this journey and a bit more of a visual. So it enables you to understand a bit more about how you can do it and how you can build that strategy for yourself. So if this is something that you feel like actually will be beneficial for you, then just go onto my website, which is taliazamora.com, and you can, if you scroll down the front page, you'll see that the opportunity to get the free link, the link for the free training. So, and then you will then get the benefit of having my weekly wisdom emails sent to you, which you don't have to have because you can unsubscribe.
Unsubscribe at any time, but you literally get to see the journey in real life. And that's the sort of thing that I like about talking to people about something, where they can then take my audience through that journey, so you can actually see it. Like, I often do this, and I don't know if anybody else does this, but for example, when Amy Porterfield was launching something not too long ago, can't remember what it was, but as soon as I got that first email, I started putting those emails all into a folder. because then I could follow the journey that she was taking everybody on. And it wasn't something that I bought that time, but I just kept everything in a folder. I was like, this is Amy's launch strategy.
Yeah, it's so
that
true.
I could pull on it.
I've done that before as well. You just kept a handful of emails when I've signed up for somebody's freebie, like if they ever signed up for mine. I then kept
to see what their nurture sequences,
to see what those emails were and how they worked. And because by all means you could do that with mine. You could literally take the template of those emails if you need to build a sequence yourself, because that's something I got stuck on for months and didn't put together. I ran away from it. But then I realized I could actually get help from others. So if anybody wanted to take I think I've got 6 or 8 that I've got on there, you can literally use them as templates and make your own. But when you've got a structure, a framework, it really helps.
Yes, it really does. So I will link to that in the show notes, guys, so you can go over and get that workshop. See this strategy in a clearer, more visual way, because obviously, although we're on video here, this is a podcast, so Talia hasn't got her slides up. She's not sort of showing the visuals. And I think sometimes when we're talking about a framework or a journey, it really helps to sort of see it in action. So I think having that training will be a really good sort of rounding of what we've talked about here. So yeah, definitely go and download that and get into Talia's world. And before we wrap up, I have got my quick fire round, which I love to do just because I really like to add to my book list, really. I mean, it is just growing exponentially at this rate, which is why I have launched the book club to help me get through my books with some accountability. Quick fire round, Talia. What is the book that has made the most impact on your life so far?
Oh, there's quite a few actually, but there's probably, let's say, a top 3. I don't think I could choose just one book.
Go on.
So I'd say from when I was younger, The Alchemist is an amazing book.
Second time that one's come up.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. So that's a lovely, gentle, easy read, but a really wonderful message about not needing to search the world for what you want that is literally on your doorstep. Mm-hmm. So in a nutshell. And that's really beautiful message to learn about from an early age. More recently, Gabrielle Bernstein's books that I've loved, and Universe Has Got Your Back is a particularly good one that I've really, really enjoyed. She's also probably a bit of a life coach, maybe, so a spiritualist. I really value some of the stuff that she says. And that's been a great book. And my holiday read recently was The Chemistry Lesson, and loved that. And it's a fantastic book. So if you want something light and easy, then that's not necessarily got a big message in it, but just a bit different. That was a bit of a quirky book to read. So yeah, there you go. 3.
I love that. Well, I will link those in the show notes too, because I am always up for a good book, and I haven't heard of any of those ones. Well, I've heard of The Alchemist, but I haven't read any of those yet. So that's great. What is your go-to favourite snack when you're in a hurry?
There's got to be granola bars. I don't always have them in the house, but then I don't mean necessarily the packaged ones that I put in the kids' packed lunch, although I will eat them too. I just mean the big, fat, chunky ones from the supermarket that are like a slice, a wedge. They're almost like a juicy fat. Yeah, they're like flapjacks, but better. Yeah. I've even attempted to make them, but can't do them the way that the supermarkets do them. So that's definitely my favourite.
Love that. And then finally, what is your ultimate me time thing to do? Now, and I'm interested to hear this because I know that you have a very busy life with your 2 little ones. So what is your go-to me time thing to do?
So probably a few years ago, being an entrepreneur, I realised that I sat way too much at my desk, and that I needed to get out, and I am a bit introverted myself. It's quite happy just to sit at my desk and not talk to anybody for hours, but also realised it wasn't good for my health, my mental health and my physical health. So I decided to get a dog, and the reason why was, one, because I thought I've got time to love and nurture another child, but I don't want another child because my kids are becoming teenagers now. It was nice to have a companion in the house, but also to get me off my backside. So the me time, it's really quite rewarding and exciting just to go for long walks. I normally put headphones on, listen to a podcast or a book. I normally listen to trashy books. It used to be all about self-development, and then realised actually I need to switch off from work for a little while. So I have to be conscious about what I'm listening to. So I often put on trashy stuff just for the hell of it, so then and I just walk. So it's great. It's a great way of unwinding, being a bit mindful, love being out in the woods, and love being with the dog. So that's my me treat. And I've got other dog walking friends that I meet up with too, so it's nice to have a bit of a therapy session along the way, sometimes chatting to others. So
I love that. I've always wanted a dog because I feel like a dog would make me go out and do some walking, because I really struggle to just get my own backside out of the door. But I'm with you on the trashy podcast. I literally I put it in my email this week. I was like, I've admitted my guilty pleasure. I was just like, so at the bottom of my email, I do a sort of weekly roundup of things I've been listening to, watching, reading, etc., learning and stuff like that. And this week I was like, mainly I've been listening to Vanderpump Rules podcasts. So Lala, Ken and Sheena Shea.
I need to remember these. I don't think I saw what you wrote on your email. But I need to. I'd like trashy ones, because sometimes I get to at the end of a book and I haven't got round to looking or buying another Audible, and so I go on to podcasts and I'll try and look for stuff. I've got a few people that I follow, but I need some funny ones.
It's reality TV, and Vanderpump Rules is a reality TV show which I love, and is my guilty pleasure. I don't feel guilty about it. I love it. And
some people like Love Island. Do you like these podcasts?
I love Vanderpump Rules, and two of the principals in that, Lala and Sheena, both have podcasts, which I have been listening to of late. So I like a good trashy. It's fun, it's light-hearted, it's gossipy, there's a little bit of tea and all of this, and it's just drama, and I just gets me out of my head for a while, so I love it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the trick, isn't it?
Exactly. Oh, I love that. Thank you, Talia, so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been great. I really enjoyed it.
Where do you hang out most online? Where can people connect with you?
So my website, I regularly update and share my newsletters and blogs, but I then also have a weekly email. So if you do download my freebie training, you'll then get my email. So please do come and follow me there. Otherwise, I do have a Facebook page, which I regularly put posts on, or sometimes I'm on LinkedIn too. So that kind of dabble in there. So yeah.
Well, I will put the links in the show notes, guys. So head over and connect with Talia and definitely get the training, because I think it's really great to have that visual as well as listening to us talk about it, and I think it will pair nicely, build on each other. So that's great. Thank you so much for your time today, Talia. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. See you soon.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Talia Zamora. Thank you so much, Talia, for coming on the show. Head over to the show notes. This is episode 177. It was released on the 14th of September 2023. So if you're listening to this in the future, then make sure you head back and grab that free training from Talia. And whilst we are on the topic of free training, I wanted to remind you that Amy Porterfield has got her live masterclass coming up next week. She is going to show you what's actually necessary to create, market and sell your digital course, tech-wise, task-wise, money-wise and more. She'll be giving you the start to finish overview of what it takes to get a course created and get it into the hands of students who need it. It is called the Low Stress Start to Finish Digital Course, Launch in 5 Streamlined Steps. So make sure that you head over to donnaeade.com doneid.com/Amy class to get access to that masterclass. Make sure you show up live, because if I know Amy as well as I think I do, there will be live prizes up for grabs and you don't want to miss it. Not only will it be value packed, but there are prizes, guys. So head over to doneaid.com/Amy class. That's DONNAEAD.com/AMYCLASS. I'll see you next week. Bye for now. Don't forget to hit those stars and leave a review of the podcast where you listen if you found value in what you heard today. It's a free way you can help the podcast reach more people just like you.